Yeah.
Ali, where have you gone?
That's not a good timing.
She's back.
Yay.
Remember to look at your camera as well, to look at your little dot.
You are live.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
We think you're live, and I'm not sure where Ian's gone.
Hi, everybody.
He's there in the background.
Hi, Ian.
We can't see you. This is true 2020 in real time.
Yeah.
He's
Hello,
gone.
everybody.
He's disappeared. So just bear with us.
Yeah.
Your mic's on, but your camera's not on, Ian.
Well, if you'll be quiet, I'll say hi, everybody. I'm Ian Knowlson, and with Lysha and Steve Guest and Ali Braid, and we are here on Recruitment Shining Stars today, and we're talking about how to be a top biller. And I'm going to hand over to Lysha while I try and work out why my camera's not working.
It's fine. I've sabotaged your camera. That's why, Ian, because I want it to, look like Dynasty, where there's just 3 people on the screen, obviously. Well, thank you for joining us today. And thank you to everybody who's already said hello. So please do take time to introduce yourselves and show us who you are. Thank you for joining us today. And I'd like to introduce my guest, which is Steve Guest. You might be familiar with Steve. He's Amazon's award-winning bestseller, a top biller, which is for the life of a recruiter. And if you haven't already read it, you really should put it on your must-read list. But actually, Steve also runs a wonderful group on Facebook called the Recruitment Mastery Group, which is free to join. So if you want to get yourselves over there. And he also runs a business called S-Guest Consultancy. And Steve has very kindly agreed today to send a free copy of this book to any of you watching who can answer this question. We want your answers in the box. And at the end, we'll pick a winner. So what do you think is the average net fee income for a perm recruitment consultant in the UK? So we just want a figure, okay? And the one who's the nearest to it, we know what it is. Start putting your answers in now, okay? And we also want your questions for a little bit later in the show. So, Steve, I'd like to ask you, first of all, the burning question. How do we actually know who will become a top biller?
What a golden question.
Literally.
I think the honest answer is you don't. Until people get started, you don't know how good someone's going to be and how they work, what motivates them, what's their reasoning to be that top billing consultant, outperform everyone else. And I think even if I look at my own story, I was rejected in my first recruitment interview because I didn't fit the profile of a recruiter. I wasn't confident enough. I wasn't brash enough. I wasn't salesy enough. I didn't have that, I suppose, that air about me that said I was going to be a strong biller. And that was the very reason, that was the rejection was the motivation, that kind of fuel to your fire that actually made me want to be the top biller, to say, do you know what? Actually, I can do it. And your type of character trait makes no difference. I think, and I've championed for 15 years now, that process, procedure, that structure, that way of working where if you can measure it, you can improve it, you can tweak it, you can add in those marginal gains. And I think it's that balance. Recruitment has changed over the years, and I think it's gone from what was a very activity-based cold calling environment to one where it's about personal branding and everything else now. And I think having the balance of the two is a really good place to be. I'll give you another example. One of my top performing consultants that I took on, when this person came for an interview, and they won't mind me saying this story, obviously they've worked with me for 8 or 9 years. Their interview was awful, to be fair. They hadn't worked in sales. They'd worked as an assistant rugby coach prior to coming for the interview. And the actual interview wasn't particularly great. But this individual had come with 4 or 5 pages of notes, and they'd researched construction, they'd researched recruitment, how it worked, how you made your money. And I said, right, you come and work with me and I'll give you a set plan and we'll work to this process. And if you do it to the letter, I said, there'll be some days where you want to throw me out the window, you want to throw the computer after me as well, because it's got a set way of working, and it's tough and it's listed with rejection and everything else. But if you stick with it, after 6 months, you can go off and do your own thing. 8 years on, 400k biller a year. Wow. In temp trades and labour, high volume, high levels of rejection. but he went to prove the fact that if it was based on interview alone, not a chance. But actually, just based purely on the fact that you're willing to do what others don't, and get past all of that, turn that person into a top performing consultant. I think as an individual, you need resilience, you need perseverance, you need the ability to not take things personally. You need to have that massive reason why that will push you through the bad days, those hurdles, those brick walls. It will make you run through burning buildings because your why is greater than the process, perhaps, or any one particular call. I
love that. It's about the why, isn't it?
It's always about the why. And I think if I think back to when I was interviewing consultants to come and work for me, you could have an already top performing consultant, and you could have someone that had just an insatiable desire to be successful. They want to go and buy their first house. They're about to get married. They want to go on the nice holidays and buy the nice things. If you can see in the whites of their eyes that nothing's going to stop them from getting to that point, I would give that person an opportunity every day of the week, because you know they've got something that's so big that it will get them to that top level of performance.
Yeah, definitely.
And quite often they're the better people to work with, because you know they've got that drive, and you can see in the whites of their eyes that they're going to get there whether you help them or not.
It's that tenacity, isn't it? I think we've just been asked, I think Ashley might have actually meant, what's the question that people are answering? So the question that we've asked Ashley, and for anyone else that's just joined us, it's okay, no, it's fine, because that's the question I've asked. To win a free copy of this book, very kindly by Steve, is what do you think is the average net fee income for a perm recruitment consultant in the UK? And we've had some real disparity, haven't we? It's been I like the fact that £400,000, is that in response to the net fee income, or is that in response to Steve's top biller? That made me smile. That. But thank you for that. Sorry to interject. And I think everything that you said there is, that's why I think a thorough interview process for any leaders that are watching is absolutely vital. And it's an understanding and lifting the bonnet on those behaviours and the drivers, as opposed to just like you've just said, when you first walked in, you didn't hit the criteria. I think we've spoken on my podcast about the fact that you're an introvert as such. Yeah. But that it's no one size fits all.
Well, I think when I think back, so I am spreadsheet savvy, borderline OCD, process procedure, quite dull, to be honest, because everything's got its place Monday to Friday, and I don't generally ever deviate from the plan, and that is very different to your kind of typical recruiter who's flamboyant, relationship building, out there, confident, and quite happy in a circle of people. I was always the quiet one in the background, and I think when I came into recruitment, I wanted to be able to do something that was different. There was a lot of pain points in recruitment: poor service, lack of feedback, lack of consistency, lack of continuity. And I knew I brought that because that's just me as a character. And I think in many ways that allowed me to be different, differentiate, and actually outperform, because I became reliable and consistent.
Yeah. So actually, everything that you've said there, I mean, I am a fag packet recruiter. I'm that person you just described. I'm, my plan is like, the quickest way to Z, but obviously without cutting corners, no process. I'm dreadful at my own CRM system. So, and, I'm sure lots of people are probably nodding away. I think, there is no one size, but it's about being authentic, actually. Yeah. And for people that are interviewing potential hires at whatever stage they're at, it's really getting under the skin and not trying to be something you're not.
Completely that. And I think if you get someone that is motivated and driven, it doesn't matter whether you're the quiet person that just sticks to a plan, or you're the flamboyant person that's really good and outwardly spoken. I think it's just knowing that you've got to have that level of resilience. You've got to have that motivation that gets you through the days where it's just really bad.
Or 10 months of a pandemic. Well, I mean, anyone that's stuck through this year still wants to do this job.
We all know when things go wrong in recruitment, it's normally Monday morning, because it's when your starters start their new role, or it's the starters going in for their temp and they don't turn up. Having something disappear the first moment when you walk into work on a Monday can be devastating.
Yeah.
And I think unless you've got that personality trait that says, do you know what's the solution? What's the best way to kind of sort this? If you've got that, I think you'll always look for the opportunity and be able to kind of move on. if you don't have that, then it will tend to eat you alive. And I think the top performers, the top billing consultants, all have that level of, do you know what? It's just a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not going to go in your favour.
Yeah. Very good. I like that. That's excellent. Really, really good answer there. Thank you so much, Steve. I mean, Ian, I'm going to hand over to Ian now. I don't know if you've got anything else you want to add to that.
I have, but I'm very conscious that the lovely Ali, who's been sitting there smiling away, due to my technical glitch, never got actually a chance to really introduce herself. So all of these lovely people on the right-hand side who are bidding for something, I don't know what they're bidding for, but no, actually. Ali, would you be so kind as to tell everybody who you are, Ali?
Yes, of course. And don't worry, I was quite happy listening to that and watching everybody's suggestions. So yeah, no, hi everyone. Really good to see you all, and lovely to see some familiar names as well down the side. So I'm Ali Braid. I'm the recruitment trainer. I run my own training consultancy. Similar to Steve, been in recruitment over 17 years. Worked on a temp desk. And then I had a training role made for me in the same business. So I was there for 10 years. I've been a director at a niche legal recruitment business and helped that grow. And then I set up on my own. So yeah, that is me. And here we are today, which is great.
And in terms of the question that Lysha asked Steve, I mean, do you have any comments on what you think? How do you spot, or how do you know how to become a top biller?
Yeah, I mean, I agree absolutely 100% with everything Steve said. And I think as I was listening to you, Steve, I was thinking back to interviews that I've done and, what traits and what qualities I've noticed in people that have gone on to do really well. And I think you're right. It's that perseverance piece is a big one. And just coming in every day and thinking, right, let's start again. Let's try again. I think as well, they are very honest about their own abilities and they are very good at spotting their own weaknesses and then working on them, and it's that whole growth mindset piece, which I think they tend to be very good at, so it's not I'm failing, I'm learning, they challenge themselves. So, it's sort of those personality traits as well, I think, that do tend to mean that people go on to becoming top billers, and I've interviewed, hundreds of graduates, and, obviously they're coming in not really knowing anything much about the industry or what the job entails. But I think it's those personality traits that actually you can get out in an interview scenario. It's hard, but you can see them. And if you've got a good process, then those sort of growth mindset based questions, I think, will reveal how people are going to respond to the bad days. Because I agree with you, Steve, that really is the key, isn't it? We all love it when we've got jobs on the board and the placements are going in and it feels easy, but actually 70% of the time that's not really the case, is it? So, how do we test for that? But yeah, I think the resilience piece and, the embracing the challenge. And you said, Steve, about the goal. What is their goal? Why do they come in the morning? And those goals can all look very different, can't they, based on the person? But they need to have one, I think. And in my experience, the people that don't have that don't succeed because, the alarm clock goes off and they think, might just stay where I am in bed. Thanks very much.
Fantastic. Good answer. So there you go. So that's the answer, Lysha. When you're doing all your screening, you need to listen to what they both said, spot resilience, get a great series of questions, and you'll be a top rec-to-rec.
Oh,
I do take your
yeah.
So,
easy.
So in terms of you both, but I'm going to ask Ali the question first. Sure. Then. So, what do you think, or how do you think you create a winning business development culture within an organization, within a recruitment organization?
Yeah. So I think when we look at that word winning, well, there's two words I think we need to decide what they mean. So winning, you know, what does winning look like for the business?
Yeah.
And what are the outcomes that we're hoping to achieve? Because, you know, we know that business development, and probably everybody that's joined us today is conscious of, you know, the bad rep that I think BD gets, and the way that we think about it. So actually, you know, what are we trying to achieve with it? What are the outcomes? And then look at that culture piece. So if we haven't had a BD culture, what is that going to look like? So if we're at A and we want to get to Z, what is our route, you know, to get there? And that's quite a lot of work in itself, I think. You know, I've worked with businesses who are like, right, suddenly we need to do lots of BD. But there's a lot of work, I think, to be done behind the scenes with management in terms of, well, what does that look like? Where are we trying to get to? And actually, is BD or a BD culture the right way to get there? If it is, great. And then obviously we need to send that message out to the business. And, you know, when I was in the legal recruiter, you know, we did that because it was very much email based and going along on LinkedIn, and, you know, the business was growing, and fundamentally we needed people to make more placements. You know, we'd moved to flash new offices, you know, which needed to be paid for. So, you know, we would really have to drive this. And I think one of the things that we found was that people didn't want to make mistakes. You know, people were really scared of saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing. So I think there's a lot of work that has to be done around, well, how are we going to respond when something does go wrong?
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah, you know, what are we going to do? Is this, you know, because we know that mistakes lead to learning. But, you know, unfortunately, as we grow up, we are conditioned to see mistakes as, you know, a disaster. And, you know, Joe Gregory and I talk about this in our boot camp, you know, that there are no big disasters in BD. You know, you put the phone down. Okay, that didn't go great. Why didn't it go great? You know, try again. So I think there's an element of, yeah, how are you going to sort of look after people when it doesn't go well? But I think also you've got to celebrate the wins. And again, this is, you know, talk about this a lot in the boot camp and in my own training. And I'm sure, Steve, you know, you feel this as well when you're still recruiting. You know, the little wins are still a win. And especially now, you know, this year, we've got to celebrate the small stuff as well as the big stuff. So I think, you know, looking at how you're going to motivate people to sort of, you know, keep going. I mean, people are talking about dream board, and actually, when you look at BD, you know, something that we did was we had a wins board. You know, so whatever that might be, people could go and write it up. You know, got through to so and so. I've been trying for 6 months. You know, hooray! But we also had a learn board. You know. This call didn't go so well. What do you think I should do? And we did make a big deal of it, but people could add their suggestions on the board. You know, we didn't talk about it as an office or anything, but it was just there and people could look at. So I think, yeah, you need to look at how you're going to celebrate wins, how you're going to help people learn and make mistakes and not feel bad about that. And then I think, I mean, I've got so many notes here. We could go on forever. But something that Joe and I again were talking about yesterday in our AMA was, sometimes when I work with clients, I think they see a BD culture, and it'd be interesting actually, Steve, to get your point of view on this. As you know, we need to do BD from 9 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, as someone that used to personally do 6 hours a day, 4 days a week of BD, I can, you know, quite safely say that's probably not a good idea. But, you know, actually a BD culture, you can do 20 minutes, you know, so whether you're working from home or whether you're sat in an office together. Right, guys, you know, let's do 20 minutes from 9:30. Let's do 20 minutes from 12. Let's do 20 minutes from 5, you know, whatever. So I think if it is a big change in culture, going back to that word, I think looking at it in small sections, you know, it doesn't have to be right. We're going to hit the phone for 3 hours. I mean, if you're a consultant that's never had to do that, that is pretty scary. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. And you know, you're looking at the CRM thinking, who am I going to ring for, you know, that's going to take 3 hours? So I think, you know, making that move from we don't do a lot on the phone, you've got to do it gradually, and just do pockets of time, and build it up. Build it. Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, absolutely. Power hour, power half hour, whatever. But build it up gradually. Yeah. Because otherwise, I think the response you'll get will just be, I can't do this.
Well, you know, I'm going to interject, Ali, because that's why people will call the likes of myself and Shannon, because actually it's a stark difference. You've not created a good culture. What you've done is you've changed your culture beyond recognition, and you're not getting that buy-in. And actually, you can have a huge impact by just saying, let's just do it for half an hour. Let's go for it, and then see what those wins are in that half an hour, and then using that to then say, right, well, look how advantageous that was. Get that feedback from your consultants. Rather than just going, we've come back from furlough and now we have to do, 25 calls in an hour or something, whatever it might be. And that's not what you were previously. So I think that's really valid. And I know that you sort of rhetorically invited Steve, but I think it's really good for Steve, if it's okay with you, to just ask him to respond to some of your questions as to what do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I agree with lots of points with Ali. I'm from a background where you had core sales hours, 9 till 12, 2 till 5.
Yeah.
So I still work to that. I haven't been any different. But you kind of integrate new ideas. So you have like 10 before 10, so 10 calls before 10 o'clock. You have the power hour. We used to have activity weeks where you got bonus points for doing certain BD elements, and you got rewarded at the end of that. We always used to plan those for the first week of every month, because then it gathered the momentum for the rest of the month, which meant you tended to have got more opportunities come through. You perhaps got various points for new business development. We had a huge whiteboard for collaboration. So if you've got a trades and labour consultant that's just got in with a new client or arranged a new meeting, that would go on the board, and then the perm white collar consultants could say, oh, you're going to go and see, I don't know, Belfer BT, can I come along on that meeting? And it just allowed for cross-selling and collaboration. When I first started out in recruitment, it was a very selfish environment, and I think it's still probably the case in most areas. You're almost taught to protect your clients, protect your candidates, ring fence your business, put your arms around it, and don't tell anyone else that that's what you do. And quite often than not, you were fighting internally and externally. And therefore, all your BD was so you, and everything was you, that when I went over to Fast Track in 2008, my whole concept was I wanted people to share. I wanted people to collaborate, because if you're all in the journey, you're going to get there faster. If everyone's bought into the end goal and the journey, everyone's going to work together. I wanted a place where people actually did recruitment handovers and didn't just hand it back when they arrived and said, I couldn't get through to any of them, sorry. Because they're so comfortable concentrating on their own business that they suddenly think on the last day, oh, I haven't done Steve's handover. And I didn't want that. I want a place where business development became part of the norm, and you're there to help each other and open doors for each other. And that's partly why I've set up the Facebook group, because I think there's so many elements. I get CVs and candidates that I can't help. And I get vacancies that come out that aren't my expertise. And I'm sat there thinking, well, what do I do with this? Quite often I'll just put it to one side and I'll work on my own focus. I wanted to find a place where actually you can share it and we can all benefit. There's a saying, isn't there? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Pay forward, isn't it?
Completely.
Definitely. But you described a bottom drawer culture, which I think we're all probably of that era.
Definitely.
Bottom drawer. And actually, to have a more holistic approach will make you a top bidder, quite literally. Whose dog's that?
It's mine. We've got someone. We've got a delivery at the door.
Of course you have.
I'm in on my own. So Yeah.
Oh no, you're gonna get your red slip through the door. Not good.
Yeah. I'll chase them down the street in a minute.
Oh, that's brilliant. Great. I mean, I don't know if you've got anything to add in, but I'd just like to say, if anyone in the audience, we have got a few minutes left. If anyone's got a question that they'd like to ask Ali or Steve, please go for it. We'll have time maybe for 1 or 2 questions, so go for it quickly if you've got anything you want to ask.
I mean, there's lots of things the guys have said, and sadly for me, I'm before the bottom drawer culture, because I started in the 1980s when we didn't even have fax. And you guys haven't got enough time for this. I guess, given the level of expertise we have on this call today in training and development, and I would, you've got a big audience today. We know that we've got probably 100, 120 people on here. And the reason why I want a question for you both. There'll be a lot of young, maybe more mature people who are trying to become better billers than they are now. So here's a question you haven't been prepped for. Can you think very briefly of a couple of things that you think they could all focus on to in the current economic climate to become a top biller? And while you're thinking, I'll give them a couple of 2 now, because you're right about resilience. It's phenomenally important. But I think also in the world we're in today, relationships is fundamentally important. And I think what those people, like you were saying earlier, people coming back from furlough, the first thing you should do is ring it. In fact, here we are, we're in December. Everybody should be ringing every client they've done business with this year and thanking them and wishing them all the best and asking them what their plans are for next year. And if you've done enough business with 20 or 30 clients, you should be starting the new year with 20 or 30 leads potentially of when you can work with them. So that would be my tip for the audience out there to do right now. Let me ask the question to Ali, who's itching to go.
I am, and the reason is, it's a great question, and I feel like I'm asked this pretty much every day in a minute. Understandably so. I think my main tip, and Joe Gregory will laugh at this because she hears me say this probably every day as well, is consistency. Turn up every day, talk to the people you want to talk to, and have your armor on in terms of they're going to say we don't need you, and that's fine. But I think the important thing for every recruiter, like you said, Ian, whatever stage you're at the minute, is to keep showing up, because you are the ones that your clients will remember. And there'll be a lot of hi, Merry Christmas. Now, don't get me wrong, that's great. Have the Christmas chat, but actually keep it business focused as well, because you will stand out a country mile. And again, a lot of people that are with us today will be like, well, Ali, I'll do this anyway. But you'd be surprised how few will, and how few, will have those business conversations. Yes, they'll talk about Christmas and that's all lovely. And, in their head, right, yeah, good, that was a good BD call. From a trainer's perspective, it's really important that you are still showing your professionalism, and you're still setting your stall out and saying, look, I know you don't need me today, but if you did, this is what I can do for you. When things change next year, this is how we can help you, and giving examples and testimonials and following it up, and, basically doing all of those touch points that we talk about in training, and doing it consistently, and not thinking, well, it's 2 weeks till December, I'm not going to bother ringing anyone. I tell you what, if you do it now when no one else is bothering, you will make an impression. So it's consistency. Show up, yes, have the chat, but also make it business focused, because fundamentally that's what we're here for. And I think clients do appreciate us getting down to the nitty gritty. We've all had it. Why are you ringing? Why are you calling me? So don't shy away from those types of conversations, because actually that's what sets you apart. That's what makes you look credible. So that would be those would be my suggestions.
Wonderful. I'd like to interject with that, because I think one thing that's come out this year is when you're having those, valid business conversations, is remember the human aspect. You've still got a collective that no other time in history we've ever had. So how are you? How are you, Mr. or Mrs. Decision Maker? How have you felt this year's gone? How have you coped? So it's that balance, it's that blend, isn't it? What about you, Steve? What would your response be to Ian's wonderful question?
Yeah, so mine would be concentrate on the front end of the process, concentrate on the parts you control, and deliver upon the simple things. So it can be as simple as making a call on a Thursday at 4 p.m. because that's what you've told the client, that you make the call at 4 p.m. on a Thursday. Keep to the simple stuff. If you control the controllables, actually the back end, the fees, the consistency in terms of your expectations will all happen because you're doing what you need to do. If you deliver upon your promises, then you will make it. And I think quite often we get clouded by that overall financial figure, and then it all becomes a little bit overwhelming, a little bit confused, and we don't do the basics right.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I know that Shannon, same as you referring to the things you say to Joe, I say to Shannon all the time, forget about the cash, forget about the fee, go back. What gets you the fee? Interview, right? Before that, what happens? The job, it's the candidate, it's actually the interview. So it's breaking it down. I love that. And it's looking at that minutiae. That's a brilliant response. I've got a response in, if you want to ask me quickly before we go. And then we've got
go on. Quickly, we've got a question.
Very quickly, and it's a word that I think it will resonate with everybody, is to basically be authentic. I think you've got to be true to yourself in whatever level you're at, whatever market you're in. You've got to be authentic and have your own individuality. And for me, that's what sets you apart as a top biller, in my opinion. Can we still see that question, Ian? We did get a great question. Good.
It's from Henry. It's a BD question. He says, and we've had this before, we've had something similar. How would you approach a saturated market where the larger agencies have dropped their rates to gain control due to COVID? In 2 sentences. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. My view on this is you've got agency A, agency B, low value fee, competitive market fee. What sort of image are you trying to present? Do you want to be bargain basement, rubbish service, mass market, CV spammers? Or do you want to be good service, offers great candidates that no other one can find? I'm over here every time. So my fee is my fee. Yeah. And you just work to it. You rise above it and you offer a better service.
Brilliant. Love it.
I'm leaning towards Ali. Go on, Ali.
So I think, this has come up a lot as well over the last few weeks. I think this relates back to, doesn't it? How are you different? How are you special? And usually, when we ask this in training, everybody says the same things. So what we need to do is go away and actually make a list of, well, what do we do that sets us apart? What do we do that adds value? And we talk about pains, don't we, of clients? What is the solution to their pains? And have those really clear in our minds so that actually when we're in these, ultimately it's a fee negotiation, isn't it? We can say, well, look, we charge 20% and this is why. Yes, you might be paying 12, but actually what do you get for 12? And I think as well, for your question, was it Henry? Yeah. Henry, I would ask, okay, so other agencies have dropped their rate. What are they doing for that? What kind of a service? If you can rate it out of 10, where would you put that? They're not going to say 10. They might say 7. They might say 8. So you can say, okay, well, what would make it a 10? What would you expect? And then once you've got that information, you say, well, that's what we do. Yes. And that's why it's 20%.
Love it. Very good.
Great answers, guys. Great answers. I love them both. It's been a great show. Lysha, do you want to say a final few things?
We will obviously, when we go off air, we will look at who was the nearest to the answer of the question that we asked to win Steve's free book of the top biller. So we will get in touch with you, and we will share that information when we share the video for this, so that it will keep you watching. And I just want to thank everybody. I really am so grateful to Steve Guest for being my guest.
Pleasure.
And you've never heard that before. And obviously Ali as well, who you're always a delight. And thank you so much for joining us. And thank you all for joining us and taking time out of your busy days, and brilliant involvement today and engagement. Really grateful. And I'll hand over to Ian, who was going to share some quite exciting news about next week's show.
Yeah. So first of all, I just like to add to what Lysha just said. Thank you very much, Steve. It's been great to meet you and talk to you. Ali, it's been wonderful having you on the show as well. And also we've had a lot of contribution from the guests who are not on camera, on the side. Some great questions. Next week, for everybody, we've got one guest on. It's the lovely Anne Swain from APSCO. And we will be talking about a number of topics, including how she feels the market's going to be next year. She's got some great information around that. We're also going to be talking about entrepreneurialism and what makes a good entrepreneur in the recruitment sector. And, Anne's always a pleasure to have on. We'll try and avoid talking about football, because if she and I start talking about football, we won't even get to talk about recruitment. And but we will definitely have a great show next week. And then the final show after that, I think, is our Christmas show, isn't it, Lysha? Which we will also be having.
We might be wearing Christmas, but don't forget, Anne's also going to talk about, because this will appeal to a lot of the people I can see on here that I know what this will appeal to, the future of female leadership in recruitment. Is there a gender gap in recruitment? Oh, that's going to be a hot topic. I'm going to ask her that question, guys. Yeah, so make sure you're watching. Get subscribed.
Brilliant, guys. Brilliant. Listen, so have a tremendous weekend. Enjoy your Christmas shopping and putting up your trees. I'm off to put my tree up this weekend. Nice. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thanks. See you. Bye. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.